Do you think transcendence is a singular event, a sudden break in matter, an unforeseen end dictated by the biological clock? False. The soul, that eternal architect of our existence, does not await the decline of the physical temple. It begins its ascent, its great journey back to the source, long before the conscious mind suspects it. And in its silent preparation, it emits codes, cryptic signals that only the initiate, the awakened seeker, can decipher. These are not omens of calamity or imminent judgments. On the contrary, they are the luminous seals of spiritual maturity, irrefutable proof that the wheel of karma has turned its final cycle and that your higher self has already taken the helm, freeing itself from the bonds of ego and worldly illusion. We are about to lift the veil covering the esoteric knowledge guarded by the ancient mystery schools, the map that reveals the 5 irrefutable signs that your soul is already preparing for life after this one. We will talk about dreams that are encounters, the dissolution of material desire, and the expansion of consciousness that nullifies the linear perception of time. This wisdom is a beacon, not a shadow. But truth is revealed only to those who invoke it with genuine purity of spirit. Before the ancient scroll of these omens unfolds before your eyes, you must declare your intention. This is the rite of passage, the decree of commitment to the path. First, honor this pact with a resonant gesture. Give this broadcast a like. Second, join this lineage of seekers by subscribing to this channel. And third, to seal your intention and activate the key that unlocks the portal of knowledge. Write the magic phrase in the comments, "I seek the truth." Only then will the cosmos open its vaults. Though the silent preparation of the helm, we have been programmed to fear the end, to see the transition as a defeat and not as the ultimate metamorphosis. The error lies in the belief that the body dictates the spirit's agenda. The soul possesses a timeless consciousness, independent of the cerebral cortex. When the cycle of incarnation is nearing its karmic closure, whether in 10 days or 10 years, the soul begins a profound process of detachment and reorientation. What we call preparation for the afterlife is, in essence, the ultimate liberation from the ego, the complete convergence with the original purpose. Your life isn't ending, it's culminating, and the omens you're experiencing are the proofs of that glorious graduation. The first great omen, the cornerstone that indicates the beginning of the process, is the awakening of the etheric memory, the lucid visitations, and the oniric counsel. Dream reality is transformed, ceasing to be a dumping ground for daytime anxieties and becoming a genuine meeting point, a portal of pure communication. Suddenly, your dreams become hyper-realistic, vivid, and populated by loved ones who have already crossed the veil. These are not mere subliminal memories, they are spiritual counsels, appointed encounters on the etheric plane where the laws of time and distance do not apply. The defining characteristic of this omen is peace. You awaken with a profound conviction of having truly been with them, receiving messages beyond words, pure energy transfer. They convey serenity about the coming transition, knowing that you will soon rejoin your soul group. Your soul begins to normalize and facilitate these connections. The fear of the loneliness of the transition dissolves in the knowledge that you are expected and guided. If you have experienced the blessing of vivid embraces, of silent conversations that close old wounds in the dream plane, your soul is already sailing through familiar waters, the sacred detachment from the material anchor. In modern society, we are taught that the value of a person is measured by accumulation, degrees, bank accounts, houses, influence. The soul in preparation reverses this equation. A natural yet intense loss of interest in possessions, status, and worldly ambitions that once defined your identity begins. You are no longer moved by superfluous luxury, nor motivated by competition. The race to the top of the world becomes irrelevant because you have recognized the real mountain to climb, that of your own evolution. It's not depression or apathy, it's liberation. It's the profound recognition that nothing material can accompany you to the crossing. This detachment is the first practical step your spirit takes to lighten its load. Your focus shifts from having to being. You prefer an authentic conversation to an expensive acquisition. You will value simplicity, connection with nature, and time spent in inner reflection above any external achievement. Your soul is cutting the ties that anchor it to the dense physical plane, preparing to float. This detachment from material things is a sign of profound spiritual health, for it indicates the victory of the self over the ego, the feeling of mission, accomplished, and karmic closure. This omen manifests as a profound sense of peace and wholeness. It is the intrinsic knowledge that regardless of the scale of your achievements, you have fulfilled the essence of your soul's plan for this life. The universe then facilitates the closure of pending karmic cycles. This manifests through spontaneous reconciliation. People from whom you've been estranged for years reappear to offer or receive forgiveness. You feel compelled to forgive offenses that previously seemed unforgivable, or to offer apologies you'd postponed out of pride. Karma is energy. For the soul to transcend cleanly, it must balance its energetic accounts. If you feel a surge of harmony and an irresistible urge to put all your emotional affairs in order, it's because your spirit is taking a final inventory. A mind at peace, with the feeling of having honored its lessons and settled its debts, is a soul ready to ascend. The book of this incarnation closes on a profound note of acceptance, the expansion of consciousness and synchronicities. The world ceases to seem like a chaotic and random place. Suddenly, you see the matrix, the subtle structure that connects all events and beings. You experience waves of synchronicity so intense that you can no longer attribute them to chance. You think of someone and they call you. You open a book at random and find the exact answer to your existential dilemma. Repeating numbers 1111, 333 become constant, acting as reminders of your cosmic alignment. This expansion is the soul operating with less resistance from the ego. Higher consciousness is released, and you have moments of total awareness where you receive complex spiritual information without needing to study it. It is truth that simply is. Your vibration rises, making you a magnet for the signs of the universe. You are an open channel, and this constant flow of meaning is proof that your spirit is tuning into the frequency of oneness, the same frequency to which it will return. The breakdown of the perception of linear time. Of all the anchors of illusion, time is the most powerful. The human mind lives chained to regret for the past and anxiety about the future. The soul, preparing for transition, begins to live in the eternal now. Linear time, that social construct that divides us, loses its tyranny. You feel that years pass like weeks, or that a single day expands into an eternity of meaning. You stop planning long-term with the same intensity as before, not out of a lack of hope, but because you understand that everything you need exists in this present moment. The past becomes a series of neutral lessons, and the future is simply a possibility with no power to generate anxiety. This is the most radical form of detachment, for the fear of death is based on the loss of the time that remains. If your soul dwells entirely in the present, that fear dissolves, since there is no loss of what is eternal. You live each breath with absolute fullness, for you know that the only true reality is this instant. Ancient wisdom and paradox. Ancient cultures did not fear these signs, they honored them. Shamans, Egyptian priests, and Tibetan lamas all viewed these 5 omens as a blessing, a sign that a soul had achieved mastery over its own experience and was ready to ascend to higher planes of existence. Your preparation for the so-called afterlife is not a dress rehearsal for death. It is, paradoxically, the ultimate learning of how to live. The soul that frees itself from the fear of transition is a soul that is finally free to fulfill its true purpose, to live each moment with full awareness, without chains of materialism, guilt, or the illusion of time. If you have recognized these 5 codes in your life, do not fear, rejoice. You are experiencing your deepest awakening. You are ready. Now, the choice is yours. Will you allow this knowledge to simply dissolve into the digital maelstrom, or will you integrate it into your journey, using it as the light map that it is? Wisdom is only useful when it is applied. Meditate on these omens and begin to live each day as if it were the only one, in peace, detachment, and deep connection. The truth is not found outside. The truth is remembered within. May the light illuminate your path. We have addressed the external omens, the codes that reality projects for the attentive observer. But now we must descend to the inner sanctum of transition, the inner process of the soul itself. You must understand that your ordinary consciousness, the one that operates through the ego and is anchored in dense matter, is the last to be informed of the impending cosmic shift. The soul, that immortal and knowing portion that inhabits the physical vessel, operates on a timetable that transcends the linear measure of earthly clocks. Long before the body begins to manifest weakness or the conscious mind recognizes the approaching threshold, the soul has already initiated a vast energetic restructuring. It is a silent architect, dismantling the densest energetic bridges that bind it to the residual karma of this incarnation. This preparation is not a reactive event to illness or age. It is a sovereign choice, an act of alignment with the higher cycle to which it is destined. The soul begins to withdraw its radiance, to soften its density, and to release the etheric bonds that anchored it to suffering, unbridled ambition, and the illusions of material attachment. This withdrawal is perceived in conscious life not as fear, but as a profound, inexplicable, and incessant need to simplify, to forgive, and to let go of burdens that until then were considered vital. It is the first inner indication that the anchor is being raised. It is the great detachment orchestrated from the depths of being, an unavoidable process that guarantees the purity of the return to the source. The mystery schools of antiquity not only knew of this process, they codified it in rituals and sacred texts to ensure that the initiate attained mastery before dissolution. Consider the Vedic tradition and the Egyptian texts of the Per Emru, or Book of Coming Forth by Day. These are not manuals for the afterlife. They are comprehensive guides to the active preparation phase of the soul. The priests of Heliopolis observed how the BA, the personality of the soul, began to travel and become familiar with the higher planes, while the Ka, the life force, still kept the body functioning. In Tibetan thought, this process is detailed in minute detail in the Bardo Thodol, which describes the progressive dissolution of the elements, earth into water, water into fire, fire into air, and so on, in the body, a process that begins weeks, even months, before final physical collapse. This internal dissolution is not externally visible. This is experienced by the soul as a gradual loss of interest in sensory textures and the trivialities of dense human interaction. The person may become strangely calm or manifest an unusual indifference to past dramas. It is the subtle awareness of the soul which, knowing itself to be on its way, has ceased investing energy in the ephemeral. It is a strategic withdrawal of psychic force that ensures a clean passage, free from the emotional shackles that could force a premature or unplanned reincarnation, an act of absolute energetic sovereignty. This truth dismantles the Western materialistic view of illness and aging, which mistakenly labels the soul's withdrawal as mental degeneration, dementia, or apathy. When you observe a loved one who seems to be distancing themselves, no longer participating with the same enthusiasm as before in worldly discussions, they are not failing. They are succeeding in the most important task of their existence. They are carrying out the sacred process of karmic discharge and final disidentification. The conscious mind, losing the dense connection with the withdrawing soul, may experience confusion and episodic memory loss, resulting in what we call disorientation. But disorientation for the ego is reorientation for the higher self, which is adjusting its frequency to attune to the planes of light. Reflect on this. True freedom is not total control over your environment, but the conscious acceptance that your soul has a higher agenda and an inner knowledge of the date and time of your earthly graduation. Will you allow the ego's panic to dictate your interpretation of this sacred process of unmooring? Or will you adopt the mentor's perspective, understanding that distancing is the first act of flight? You must shift the narrative from one of loss to one of liberation. How does this unmooring manifest in the daily life of an active and seemingly healthy individual who has not yet crossed the visible threshold of illness? It manifests as an inescapable urge to order their external life to facilitate internal ordering. People in this advanced stage of preparation feel a compelling need to rid themselves of material possessions they previously treasured. It is the soul freeing itself from the dead weight that would hinder its vibrational ascent. There is a powerful impulse toward reconciliation, toward healing old wounds and resentments, for the soul knows it cannot carry the baggage of discord to the higher spheres. In the physical sphere, you may notice inexplicable changes in appetite or sleep patterns, cycles of extreme wakefulness followed by deep, restorative sleep, almost like a rehearsal for bodily inactivity. These are not random symptoms. These are the bioenergetic signs that the soul's force field is consolidating internally, withdrawing the energy it previously used to maintain the illusions of the social personality. The soul is taking a final inventory, ensuring that the only trace it leaves behind is one of light and unconditional forgiveness. It is a silent testament to the life lived, a purification that the conscious mind often mistakes for mere whim or spring cleaning, when in reality it is preparation for the ignition of the vehicle of light. Now, before we continue our immersion in the mysteries of the Great Transition, stop. Sit in absolute stillness. Close your eyes and feel the vibration in your chest, the center where the threefold flame resides. Ask yourselves, without allowing the rational mind to interfere, what burden feels heaviest at this moment? What forgiveness needs to be given or received so that my soul may feel the lightness it seeks? Do not look for a complex answer. Look for the sensation of relief or oppression in the solar plexus. That sensation is the voice of your soul, indicating the final adjustments needed for its perfect alignment. Honor that voice, for the preparation of the soul is not a passive process. It is a masterpiece of energetic engineering. If you refuse to heed its subtle calls, the transition becomes complex, painful, and forced. The soul attempts to teach the ego the mastery of detachment before it is required to practice it. The knowledge of this process frees you from the terror of the unknown because you know there is a greater plan and that this plan is being executed from within, guided by an intrinsic wisdom. But there is an element that intervenes in this pre-established design, a mysterious force that assists in the final moments of unmooring, ensuring that the flight is assisted and safe, even if the body resists. I speak of the guardians of the threshold, the beacons of light that await at the dimensional boundary to receive the pilgrim. What is the nature of these etheric guides, these higher intelligences? And how can we recognize their presence in our lives and feel their influence before the veil finally falls, revealing the path home? We must immediately correct the fundamental fallacy that the ordinary intellect projects onto the paranormal or energetic phenomena we have previously discussed. The 5 signs manifesting in your vibrational field, the intensification of lucid dreams with direct instruction, the hearing of frequencies that defy the physical ear, the sense of chronological urgency, the emotional detachment from people and places, and the dramatic increase in synchronicity are not, under any circumstances, harbingers of your imminent physical demise. This is the crude and limited interpretation that the ego, clinging to linear time and the dense body, concocts to create resistance. The truth, safeguarded in the Akashic records and whispered by the ascended masters, is infinitely more glorious. These signs are the unmistakable indicators of an accelerated process of spiritual awakening and profound dimensional evolution. They are markers of a graduation of the soul, where detachment from the ego is not a loss, but the requirement for admission to a higher phase of consciousness. The body can continue its normal cycle, but the inner structure of your being, the causal matrix that defines your identity, is undergoing a radical mutation. If you perceive these signs, you are not preparing to die on earth, but to be reborn in spirit. The intensity of these experiences is directly proportional to the urgency of your soul's plan to complete its learning in this density before the opening of the next evolutionary portal. The investigative dynamics of this phenomenon compel us to look beyond modern psychology and turn to the codes of high magic and ancient esotericism. In the mystery schools of Egypt, the concept of signs was directly linked to the preparation of the Kai and the Ba for the night journey, not as a posthumous journey, but as a test of mastery while the body was still breathing. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thodol, although focused on transition, dedicates entire sections to pre-mortem signs, which are essentially signs of liberation. The advanced practitioner who experiences what we call ego detachment is, in fact, consolidating their light body, or Sambhogakaya. The ego is the identity built on trauma, fear, and limitation. Detachment is the conscious demolition of that psychic prison. Dream visits and heightened sensitivity are nothing other than the soul taking the helm and sailing toward liberation. The manifestation of these 5 signs indicates that you have reached the karmic point of no return, where the inertia of matter can no longer sustain the density of your former self. The symbolism of detachment here is not denial, but transcendence. It is the conscious release of chains so that you can take flight. Recognizing this transforms the terror of death into the anticipation of great revelation. The process of the signs compels a necessary reflection and transformation, the confrontation with the illusion of permanence. If the signs indicate that the awakening process is underway, what part of your life is actively resisting this metamorphosis? The ego, in its desperate attempt to survive, uses denial, projection, and victimhood as shields against the incoming light. True spiritual awakening is inherently a process of dying while still alive. It is the voluntary dismantling of the constructed personality. The 5 signs are designed to force this dissolution. For example, emotional detachment from people and places is not rejection, but the recognition that those ties no longer serve the elevated frequency you are trying to sustain. Your higher purpose demands lightness. If the fear of loss causes you to cling to old relational or material structures, you are blocking the flow of awakening. The transformative question is, if you knew that your physical body would remain healthy and strong, but that your soul demands absolute purity to ascend, what would you release today without hesitation? The answer to that question is the map to your current liberation. Understanding the profound meaning of these signs is, in itself, the ultimate alchemy. It is the transmutation of the dense lead of fear into the radiant gold of absolute knowledge. When you understand that the process is not terminal but transcendental, resistance ceases, and the energy previously used for fear is redirected toward accelerating evolution. The signs are the divine timepiece, marking the end of the age of limitation and the beginning of the age of mastery. Detachment does not create emptiness, but rather purifies the vessel so that it is fit to receive the full weight of your life mission. This is the critical turning point. Before delving into how this detachment inexorably leads to a sense of mission accomplished and the recognition of higher purpose, we must ensure that the foundation of your consciousness is firmly grounded in this revealed truth. Now, close your eyes for a moment and bring your attention to the idea or possession you are most terrified of losing. Don't analyze it, just feel it. Notice where that emotional attachment resides in your body, in your throat, your chest, your stomach. Now, ask that attachment, that visceral fear, are you my soul, or are you the shadow of what I believe myself to be? Allow the sensation of the shadow to dissolve upon contact with the light of your inner truth. Repeat, I do not fear detachment, for detachment is the path to my true self. We have come to understand that the signs do not foretell the end, but rather the metamorphosis of the chrysalis. But spiritual awakening and detachment are not ends in themselves. They are the mechanism that allows the soul to focus on the ultimate reason for its incarnation. The purpose of all this intense preparation, all this energetic and psychological readjustment, culminates in the unmistakable recognition of your sacred contract and the sense of mission accomplished. How exactly does this sense of purpose manifest in consciousness? And what happens in the auric field when the final piece of the purpose puzzle falls perfectly into place, guaranteeing the ultimate success of the pilgrimage? We have arrived at the first unmistakable sign of the soul's mission accomplished, the phenomenon of dream visitations. Understand this, disciples. The ordinary mind, trapped in the duality of pain and memory, attempts to reduce these encounters to mere projections of the subconscious, to psychological echoes of unresolved grief. I tell you that this is a profane simplification. When the being is aligned with its ultimate purpose, the vibrational frequency of its auric field rises until it touches the dimensional threshold. The veil that separates your three-dimensional world from the eighth plane becomes, for a fleeting time, translucent. What you experience are not dreams, but genuine spiritual encounters, agreed upon appointments in the ether that your consciousness can only encode in the language of dreams. These dreams possess a hyper-realistic quality that defies the logic of the imagined. The texture of the fabric, the specific scent of the departed loved one, the resonance of their voice, the palpable sensation of their energetic presence. These are not hallucinations induced by melancholy. They are transmissions of clear consciousness, trans-dimensional telepathy where the soul, freed from the constraints of the sleeping physical body, travels to reunite with those who serve as guides or beacons in the bardo. The crucial characteristic that distinguishes these visitations from an ordinary dream is the irrefutable peace and absolute certainty of truth they bring. The message is always one of confirmation and guidance, never of alarm or pain. It is the signature of the immortal spirit, reminding you that the connection was never broken, but merely transformed. To understand the sanctity of these dream encounters, we must turn to the ancient archives that modernity has discarded. Mystery cultures did not fear sleep. They revered it as the primary gateway to the Akashic records and to communication with ancestors. Consider the esoteric teachings of ancient Egypt, where death was not an end, but the transition between the Ka and the Bia. Embalming rituals and funerary texts, such as the Book of the Dead, not only prepared the deceased but also instructed the living on how to interpret the manifestations of spirits on the earthly plane, often revealed during deep sleep. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, the Bardo Thodol details the intermediate states of existence, And dream yoga trains the practitioner to keep their consciousness lucid and capable of interacting with beings in the intermediate state. Bardo. When a deceased loved one appears in your hyper-realistic dream with a clear message, you are not dreaming in the Freudian sense. You are participating in a diplomatic dialogue between planes, attending a consultation with an astral oracle. The clarity of the message, which often provides a vital key to your present path or validates the direction of your mission, is the fingerprint of the real encounter. These beings, not being limited by physical density, can see the full picture of your sacred contract and offer the necessary perspective for you to continue without deviation. The essential purpose of these visitations transcends mere emotional comfort. Their primary function is to serve as a mechanism for adjustment and validation in the final stretch of your soul's mission. As the purpose begins to crystallize and the energy necessary for culmination builds, opposing forces, the shadows of doubt, the lingering fear of failure, the inertia of the ego, attempt to divert the course. It is at this critical juncture that the cosmos intervenes through your ancestors or spirit guides. The message you receive is unmistakably direct and actionable. It may be a confirmation of a path you have hesitated to take, a subtle warning about a deceptive alliance, or, more commonly, a simple yet powerful injection of courage. Do not fear. You are on the right path. The time is now. The peace that floods your being upon awakening is the energetic proof of the message's truth. An instantaneous auric cleansing that dispels the mental fog generated by the stresses of modern life. Remember that mission accomplishment is not achieved in isolation. It requires the silent collaboration of the spiritual hierarchy to which you belong. These visits are the cosmic progress report, the unmistakable sign that your work is being observed and supported by those who have transcended and now operate from a plane of total vision. Accepting the authenticity of dream visitations demands a profound transformation of your existential paradigm. If you remain anchored in the materialistic view that dictates that consciousness is an epiphenomenon of brain matter and that death is total annihilation, these encounters will remain as phantoms of the psyche. Your challenge is to elevate dream interpretation to the level of revelation. By recognizing that death is merely a doorway and not a wall, the perception of loss dissolves and the connection is re-established as a constant flow. This truth compels you to restructure your identity. You are no longer a body that has a soul. You are an immortal soul that uses a body and maintains bonds of consciousness across dimensions. The essential transformation lies in integrating the wisdom received during the night into your conscious actions during the day. If the loved one urged you to forgive or move on, the validation of the visitation is measured by your ability to implement that directive upon waking. This alchemical integration process is what consolidates the signal, strengthening your conviction that you are operating under a higher mandate, guided by invisible hands that push you towards the glorious completion of your karmic contract. Now, allow stillness to descend upon your center. Evoke in your memory the most vivid visitation dream you have ever experienced, the one that left you with the certainty of a real encounter. Do not seek the message, but rather the energetic resonance that this being transferred to you. Was it warmth, lightness, an expansion in the heart area? Bring that feeling of peace and validation into your physical body and let it permeate your bones and muscles. Ask that resonance, what action does this truth require of me? The answer will not come from the mind, but from the certainty residing in your chest. Understand that visitation is proof of your capacity to travel and communicate, a skill you must refine for future work. We have deciphered the first external sign, the confirmation of the hierarchy that supports you. But if cosmic validation manifests at night, the next indication feels like an internal earthquake, a complete readjustment of the psychological machinery that anchors you to the past. When the purpose is revealed, Consciousness no longer operates under the tyranny of debt or self-sacrifice. The soul begins to experience a radical liberation from the karmic weight that once defined its existence, transcending old wounds and emotional ties. Sign 2 manifests as the absolute and undeniable release from the past and the weight of historical burden, allowing energy to flow, finally and unhindered, toward mission accomplished. How will you recognize the exact moment when Ariadne's thread of karma is cut and your journey becomes, at last, free? Total liberation is not a gift from the cosmos, but the epiphany that the higher self has taken control of the ship. When the karmic thread is severed, it is because the lesson has been integrated so deeply that it no longer requires friction or suffering as a tool for growth. Your past is no longer the compass, but the map that documents the journey completed. Remember this summary: external validation, hierarchical visitation, and internal liberation, the severing of karma, are mirrors that confirm a single, irrefutable, and radiant truth. Purpose is already installed in your central axis. It only awaits your coherent action. The greatest knowledge you have acquired today is not knowing what to seek, but knowing that what you seek is already operating through your own expanded frequency. The truth is, you were not liberated. You simply recognized that you were always free. I ask you, warriors of light, as you embrace this liberating truth, if all the weight of time, error, and debt dissolves right now, what feeling beyond peace emerges in the void left by fear? Share your impressions below. Share the energy of your liberated emptiness. This wisdom cannot remain stagnant. If the echo of this truth has stirred within you, you must fulfill your first act of cosmic service. Share this portal with those who, feeling the oppression of the past, are ready to receive liberation. Let the light flow. And to ensure that the frequency of these teachings remains uninterrupted on your path and that your access to the ascension codes is always protected, you must subscribe right now and activate the sacred notification bell. This is the decree that guarantees your continuity in this mission and in this ascension. We have opened the doors of perception, but enlightenment demands perseverance. Your next portal, your next point of ascension in the revelation of the signs, is now available and is titled Title of Next Video. Don't wait for dawn to begin the movement. Let us proceed now, in the certainty of absolute liberation. The mission continues,